They said I was just the admin, the girl in the basement with dusty files. My brother, the famous historian, called my work lowbrow trash that rots the brain. What he didn't know? I'm Veyle, the best-selling author, who just bought his career out from under him. Subscribe to hear how the invisible sister became the ghost, who destroyed the Golden Boy's empire. Before we dive into how I dismantled my brother's entire academic career, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on family, loyalty, and revenge. My name is Hannah Preston. I'm 34 years old, and by day, I'm a senior research assistant at Whitmore University Library. It's not glamorous work. I spend my days in the basement levels, in climate-controlled rooms that smell like old paper and preservation chemicals. I catalog rare documents. I digitize fragile manuscripts. I organize archival collections that no one but scholars will ever see. The work is meticulous, quiet, invisible. I am, for all practical purposes, a ghost in the machine of academia. I'm good at my job, very good. I have keys to every restricted archive in the building. I know the collections better than anyone, including the head librarian. When professors need access to special materials, they come to me. I unlock doors, I retrieve documents, I return them to their climate-controlled tombs, and then I disappear back into the basement. No one remembers my name, no one asks about my weekend. I'm furniture. My brother, Dr. Miles Preston, is the opposite of invisible. He's a tenured professor in the history department. Well, not tenured yet, but everyone assumes it's inevitable. He's the university's media darling, the charming historian with the perfect hair and the made-for-TV smile. I'll be in the staff break room, eating my sad desk lunch, and I'll see him on the news. Dr. Miles Preston, historian and public intellectual, weighs in on whatever. He has a hashtag. He has a personal brand. He's been profiled in 3 different magazines this year alone. My parents worship him. David and Evelyn Preston, retired now. They live in a carefully decorated house in the suburbs and spend their days orbiting their sin's success. Like he's the sun and they're desperate little planets clinging to his gravity. I get the weekly phone call, every Sunday, like clockwork. It's always the same performance. My mother's voice, bright and artificially sweet. Hannah, darling, did you see Miles send that morning show? He was wonderful, so articulate. The host said he was the most engaging guest they'd had in months. There's always a pause, a little intake of breath, and then the inevitable pivot. The shift from Miles's triumphs to my failings. And you, dear, still working in the basement with those files? The way she says files makes it sound like I'm sorting garbage. It's such a shame you couldn't finish your doctorate. You were so close. I was close. I'd completed my coursework. I'd written 3 chapters of my dissertation. It was good work. Original research on women's correspondence networks during the Civil War. My advisor, Dr. Richard Holloway, was one of Miles's mentors, one of his biggest supporters. When I submitted my chapters, Holloway called me into his office. He leaned back in his leather chair looking at my work, like it was something mildly distasteful he'd found on his shoe. Hannah, he'd said, this is, well, it's very feminine, isn't it? All these letters about domestic concerns, recipes, children. It's a bit soft. History needs to be objective, rigorous. Can't you find something with more gravitas? 2 weeks later, I sat in that same office and watched him tell Miles that his dissertation proposal on military strategy was genius. Pure genius. You're going to redefine the field. I dropped out the next semester, not because I couldn't do it, because I finally understood that this system wasn't built for people like me. It was built for people like Miles. I could be twice as smart, work twice as hard, and I'd still be the girl with the feminine perspective who couldn't find gravitas. But my life has a second frequency, a frequency my family doesn't know exists. When I leave the library, when I walk to my car in the employee lot, when I drive back to my small apartment on the east side, I shed Hannah Preston like a coat. I lock my door, I make a cup of tea, is it down at my desk in front of my laptop, and I become someone else. I become N.R. Veyle. And N.R. Veyle is the most successful historical fiction author in the country. My novels, the ones Miles would call lowbrow trash, sell millions of copies. I have 6 books on the New York Times bestseller list right now, simultaneously. I have movie deals, audiobook deals, foreign translation rights in 43 countries. I make more money in a month than Miles makes in a year, than my parents made in a decade. And no one knows, not my family, not my coworkers, not even the people I pass in the grocery store who have my books in their shopping carts. I'm a ghost, by choice. Because 3 years ago, when my first book hit the bestseller list, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my name, N.R. Veyle, in black ink on that prestigious page, and I had no one to tell, no one to celebrate with. My family would have dismissed it. Romance novels, Hannah? Really? So I kept it to myself, and the secret became a weapon. My agent, Liam Corso, is one of 3 people who know my real identity. He's a shark. 46 years old, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. He used to work in mergers and acquisitions before he realized that art was more profitable and infinitely more interesting than hostile corporate takeovers. We talk via Zoom, always. He's never seen my face in person. I'm just a voice and a very productive client. Last month, we closed my newest deal. I was sitting at my desk, the same desk where I write about doomed love affairs and historical intrigue, when Liam's face appeared on my screen. He was grinning. Hannah, he said, using my real name because he's earned that right. The advance just cleared, $1.5 million for 2 books. They're also talking film rights for the Civil War series. We're looking at another 7 figures if that goes through. I should have felt something, joy, pride, relief, but I just felt cold. I looked at the number on the screen, more money than my parents had ever seen, more prestige than Miles could dream of, and none of it mattered because I couldn't share it, couldn't claim it. I was still Hannah the admin, the failure, the girl who couldn't finish her PhD. That's good, Liam, I said. What's next? He laughed. You're unbelievable. Most authors would be opening champagne. You're already asking about the next project. I like to stay busy. Yeah, I've noticed. He paused. His face got serious. Hannah, you know you don't have to keep this secret forever, right? You could come out, do press, build your public brand. You'd be a sensation. No, I said, I like it this way. Secrets have a way of coming out, he warned. And when they do, make sure you're the one controlling the narrative. I smiled. Don't worry, Liam. When it comes out, it'll be on my terms. I just didn't know those terms would arrive so soon. 2 weeks later, I got the Sunday phone call. My mother, her voice vibrating with barely contained excitement. Hannah, you have to come to dinner this Friday. Miles has big news, huge news, career-defining news. We're celebrating early. I knew what that meant. It was the tenure review. Miles had been circling it like a vulture for 2 years. Associate professors don't get tenure automatically. You have to prove your value, publish significant research, bring prestige to the university. Miles had the teaching awards and the media presence, but he was light on the serious scholarship. He needed something big. Friday arrived. I drove to my parents' house, a sprawling colonial in a neighborhood where everyone's lawn is professionally maintained and no one makes eye contact. My father answered the door. David Preston, retired insurance executive. He looked at me the way he always did, vaguely disappointed, like I was a quarterly report that came in under projections. Hannah, you're here. Good. Miles is already inside. He's very excited. The dining room table was set like a state dinner. My mother had gone all out. Candles, expensive wine, the good china that only came out from Miles's achievements. I took my usual seat, the one at the far end, the one where I could see everyone but be easily forgotten. Miles was already holding court. He's 38, 4 years older than me, tall, handsome in a conventional way, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never being told no. He was dressed like he was about to give a TED talk. Blazer, no tie, expensive watch. He raised his wine glass, examining the color like he was performing for an invisible camera. You know, he said, the thing about history is that most people only want the junk food version, the easy stories, the romance, the drama. He glanced at me. They all glanced at me. But thankfully, institutions like Whitmore and grant committees with actual standards, they understand the value of real scholarship. My mother was already beaming. My father was nodding along. like Miles was delivering divine wisdom. I just picked up my water glass and took a sip. "What's the big news, Miles?" He smiled, the smile of a man who's about to drop a bomb and knows it. "I've been granted something extraordinary, exclusive access to the Harrison letters." I stopped mid-sip. The Harrison letters. I knew them well. I'd cataloged them myself 2 years ago. They're a collection of Civil War correspondence. Letters between a Union general, Marcus Harrison, and his wife, Abigail. They're historically significant, beautifully written, completely untouched by modern scholars, because they're locked in our library's special collections vault. Access requires approval from the university's archive committee. It's almost never granted. "That's quite an achievement," I said carefully. "How did you manage that?" "Persistence, vision, and the fact that the committee recognizes genius when they see it." He took a sip of wine. "But that's not all. The university has also approved a research grant, $250,000, to support my work on the letters. This is going to be my magnum opus, the book that defines my career, guarantees my tenure. This is legacy-level work." My parents erupted. My father stood up and clapped Miles on the shoulder. "That's my boy, that's my son, $250,000. Hannah, did you hear that?" "I heard," I said quietly. My mother turned her bright, cruel gaze on me. She smiled. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted wounded prey. "Oh, Hannah, this is wonderful news for you too." I set down my fork. Slowly. "How so, Mom?" "Well, you work right there in the library. You're an assistant. You can help Miles with his research. You can, do his filing, his photocopying. Imagine what you'll learn being so close to real scholarship. This could be your chance to finally contribute to something important." The word hit me like a slap. Filing. She wanted me to file my brother's papers, to be his secretary, his administrative support. After everything I'd accomplished, everything I'd built in secret, she still saw me as the girl who couldn't finish her doctorate, the girl whose only value was in supporting her brother's work. Miles laughed, that short, barking laugh that wasn't about humor. It was about dismissal. "Mom, let's be realistic. This is high-level theoretical work. It requires years of training, a deep understanding of historiography. It's not..." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the contempt in his eyes. "It's not like those trashy romance novels you read, Hannah. The ones with the shirtless guys on the cover." My father chuckled. My mother tittered. They thought it was funny. Miles wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, warming to his subject. "In fact, those kinds of books, that lowbrow historical fiction, that's the real enemy of public intellectualism. It rots people's brains. It makes them think history is about feelings and drama and romance. It makes my job as a real historian that much harder. People read that garbage and think they understand the past. They don't. They understand a fantasy." He was talking about my work, my life, my $1 million contracts, my best-selling novels, the books that had been optioned for film, the stories that millions of people loved. And he was calling it garbage, brain rot, an enemy of real thought. And he had no idea at all. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't throw my wine in his smug face, though I desperately wanted to. I felt something inside me that had been worn thin, stretched to breaking over 34 years of this. Finally snap. It was a clean break, precise, like a bone fracturing along a perfectly planned line. I heard it in my head, the cold, clean click of a lock disengaging. I looked at my brother, at his arrogant, ignorant face, at my mother beaming with pride over a son, who'd just insulted my entire life's work without knowing it, at my father nodding along like a dashboard ornament. And I thought, very clearly, very calmly, enough. I picked up my wine glass, took a slow sip, set it down, smiled. "That's wonderful, Miles. I'm so happy for you, truly. This is exactly what you deserve." He missed the edge in my voice. They all did. Because they'd never really listened to me. Not once, not ever. I drove home that night in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. Parked. walked up to my apartment, locked the door, and I stood in the dark living room, not turning on the lights, just standing there, breathing, thinking, planning. Then I picked up my phone. I called Liam. It was late, but he answered. He always answered when I called. "Hannah?" His voice was concerned. "You okay? You never called this late." "Liam," I said. My voice was perfectly calm, unnaturally calm. "I need you to set up a foundation, a charitable foundation, anonymous, called the NR Veyle Fund." There was a pause. "Okay, I love it. What's the mission?" "Historical preservation, specifically digital access to historical documents. Democratizing primary sources for scholars and the public." "That's actually beautiful," Liam said. "Very on brand for you. What's the initial funding?" "I want to make a donation to Whitmore University Library for a special digitization project." "How much are we talking?" $300,000. The silence on the other end was long. "Hannah, that's not a standard author expense. That's a significant chunk of your advance. What's this for?" I smiled in the darkness. "It's for justice, Liam, and it's an investment. I want them to digitize a specific collection, the Harrison letters. Every single page, every envelope, every annotation. I want it scanned, transcribed, and uploaded to a free public database, accessible to anyone in the world with an internet connection." Another pause, longer this time. And then Liam started to laugh, a deep, genuine laugh. "Oh my God, you're going to open source someone's exclusive research, aren't you? Someone you know, someone who pissed you off." "I'm democratizing history," I said. "Isn't that what you'd expect from NR Veyle? A champion of accessible storytelling?" "Hannah," Liam said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. "I love my job. I really, truly love my job. The foundation will be incorporated by Monday. The donation will be anonymous and completely untraceable. They'll just see a massive no-strings-attached gift from a passionate benefactor who believes in open access to knowledge." "Perfect," I said. "There's one more thing. I need the university to prioritize this. I need the digitization done immediately, within 2 months." "That's fast. That's expensive. You sure about this?" "Completely sure." "Okay," Liam said. "Consider it done. But Hannah, this is personal, isn't it?" I looked out my apartment window at the city lights. "This is business, Liam, just business." "Sure it is," he said, but I could hear the smile. The next morning, I went to work like always. I parked in the employee lot. I badged into the library. I took the elevator down to sublevel 2. I walked through the fluorescent lit corridors to my tiny office, a converted storage room with a desk, a computer, and boxes of archival materials waiting to be processed. And I started planning. I pulled up the Harrison Letters catalog. I'd created it myself. 847 individual documents, letters, diary entries, telegrams, all carefully preserved in acid-free boxes in Vault 3. I had the access codes. I had the keys. I was, after all, the senior research assistant. This was literally my job. Over the next week, I worked methodically. I pulled the collection. I set up our high-resolution scanner in the preservation lab, and I began to digitize, page by page, letter by letter. I worked early mornings before anyone else arrived. I worked late nights after everyone left. No one questioned it. Why would they? I was always working on some digitization project. It was what I did. Meanwhile, Miles was living his best life. I'd see him in the hallways, surrounded by grad students, talking loudly about his exclusive access and his groundbreaking project. He'd rented a bigger office with his grant money. He was hosting salon-style meetings, wine and cheese gatherings, where he'd hold forth about his process and his vision. He hadn't even started the actual research yet. He was too busy performing the role of distinguished scholar. 2 weeks after our family dinner, Liam called. "The foundation is official. The wire transfer has been sent, $300,000, to the Whitmore University Library, earmarked for the Harrison Letters digitization project." They accepted it this morning. The head librarian called it a godsend and a transformative gift. They're already allocating resources. "And the timeline?" I asked. "They've committed to completing it before the fall semester. They're hiring temporary staff. Your donation is covering everything." Scanning, transcription, metadata creation, server hosting. It's going to be beautiful, Hannah. A genuinely important contribution to scholarship. Good, I said. Keep me updated. I hung up and returned to my work. By day, I was Hannah Preston, the invisible research assistant, dutifully cataloging and organizing. By night, I was N.R. Veyle, crafting my next bestseller. And in between, I was something else entirely. Something cold, something patient, something that understood revenge wasn't about anger, it was about precision. The university moved fast, faster than I'd expected. The library administration was thrilled by the anonymous donation. They issued a press release about the generous benefactor and the unprecedented commitment to open scholarship. They hired 2 additional staff members to help with the scanning. They bought new equipment, and I, as the senior research assistant, with intimate knowledge of the collection, was assigned to oversee the project. It was perfect. I was being paid to destroy my brother's career. Miles remained oblivious. At Sunday dinners, he'd talk about his progress, which mostly consisted of reading secondary sources and making notes. I'm taking my time, he'd say, swirling his wine. Real scholarship can't be rushed. This is going to be definitive. The Harrison letters have never been properly analyzed. I'm going to change how we understand the home front during the Civil War. My mother would sigh with admiration. My father would nod sagely. And I would sit at the far end of the table, eating my overcooked chicken, thinking about the 847 documents that were, at that very moment, being scanned, transcribed, and prepared for global release. 2 months later, the project was complete. Every letter, every page, every word. All digitized, all transcribed, all uploaded to the university's public database. Freely accessible to anyone, anywhere. The head librarian sent out another press release, thanking the N.R. Veyle Foundation and celebrating this milestone in democratic access to historical resources. Miles still didn't know. The university hadn't thought to tell him. Why would they? He had exclusive access to the physical documents. No one had revoked that. They'd just made those documents not exclusive anymore. And then came the gala. The Whitmore University Annual Autumn Gala. It's the biggest fundraising event of the year. Black tie, donor tables, the board of trustees, local media, everyone who matters in the university's ecosystem. It's a performance, a show. And this year, Miles was the star. He'd been asked to give a keynote speech about his Harrison Letters project, about the importance of scholarly research, about the university's commitment to academic excellence. My parents had bought a table, front row. They'd been talking about it for weeks. I wasn't planning to go, but then I got a personal invitation from the library director. Hannah, your work on the digitization project has been extraordinary. We'd love for you to attend the gala as our guest. The dean is going to make an announcement about the project, and we want you there. I accepted. I bought a dress, simple black, elegant, expensive. I had the money after all, I just never spent it on things my family could see. The gala was held in the university's grand hall. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers. I arrived early. I found my seat at the library staff table, tucked in the back. I watched as people filed in, donors in tuxedos and gowns, professors in their finest, and then my family. My mother was wearing a sequin dress that was trying too hard. My father was in a suit I recognized from every formal event for the past decade. And Miles was in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his hair styled, his smile practiced. He looked like he was about to accept an Oscar. They took their seats at the front. Miles kept standing up, shaking hands, playing the room. The dinner was served, speeches began. The university president talked about growth and excellence. The dean of arts and sciences talked about research initiatives. And then Miles was introduced. He walked to the podium. The applause was enthusiastic. He was popular, charming, the kind of professor students loved and donors remembered. He smiled, he thanked everyone, and then he began. I want to talk tonight about the sacred trust of scholarship, he said. His voice was smooth, practiced. As historians, we are the guardians of the past. We have a responsibility to treat primary sources with reverence, to protect them, to analyze them with rigor and care. He talked about the Harrison letters, about his exclusive access, about how his forthcoming book would redefine our understanding of the Civil War homefront. He talked about the $250,000 grant, about how Whitmore was investing in real, meaningful research. My work, he said, will be a jewel in this university's crown, a testament to what's possible when institutions support serious scholars. The applause was thunderous. My parents were on their feet. My mother was crying, actual tears. Miles walked off stage basking in the adulation. And then the dean stood up, Dean Patricia Holloway. No relation to my old dissertation advisor, thankfully. She's a formidable woman. She smiled at the crowd. Thank you, Dr. Preston, for that inspiring speech. What a testament to the power of dedicated scholarship. She paused, looked at her notes. And speaking of the power of scholarship, I have another announcement, one that I think embodies the very best of what universities should be. I sat up straighter. This was it. Several months ago, the dean continued, this university received an extraordinary gift, an anonymous donation of $300,000 from a foundation dedicated to historical preservation and public access, the N.R. Veyle Foundation. I watched Miles's face, watched the smile freeze, watched confusion flicker across his features. This generous donation, the dean said, allowed us to undertake an ambitious project, the complete digitization of the Harrison Letters collection. The room went very quiet. I saw Miles's hands grip the edge of his table. And tonight, the dean said, her voice rising with genuine excitement, I am thrilled to announce that as of 6 p.m. this evening, the entire Harrison Letters archive is now available, free of charge, to scholars, students, and history enthusiasts around the world. Every letter, every document, fully searchable, fully accessible, forever. The applause was immediate, and it was loud, louder than it had been for Miles. People were standing. The historians in the room understood what this meant. Open access to a major primary source. This was huge. This was revolutionary. This is what universities should do, someone shouted. Incredible, a gift to scholarship. The dean was beaming. The donors were nodding approvingly. The students in the room were pulling out their phones, already searching for the database. And Miles. Miles looked like he'd been shot. His face had gone from pink to white to a sickly gray. His exclusive access, his competitive advantage, his tenure-defining project had just been democratized. His $250,000 grant had just been rendered pointless by a $300,000 donation. Anyone, anywhere could now access the Harrison Letters. His exclusive research was now just research. Nothing special, nothing unique. I sat in the back at my library staff table and I took a sip of cheap champagne. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, I just watched my brother's carefully constructed image collapse in real time. Watched my parents, who had been on their feet seconds before, sink slowly back into their chairs. Watched the exact moment Miles realized his monument was now just another website. After the gala, I went home. I didn't linger. I didn't talk to anyone. I just left. I drove back to my apartment. I made tea, and I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I started writing. Not my next novel, something else. A proposal for a new book. A historical novel, based naturally on the now freely accessible Harrison Letters. The fallout was immediate. Within a week, Miles's entire project was in jeopardy. The grant committee called an emergency meeting. The question was obvious. Why were they paying Miles $250,000? To research documents that weren't now freely available to anyone. What value was he adding? What could he do that any other scholar or any interested amateur couldn't do just as well? Miles panicked. He tried to pivot, argued that his analysis, his theoretical framework, his rigorous methodology would still produce something valuable. But the committee was skeptical. They suggested he return half the grant, then 2/3, then all of it. His tenure review, once a sure thing, was suddenly in question. Without the groundbreaking research project, what did he have? Good teaching evaluations, media appearances, but not much serious scholarship. Not enough to justify tenure, not at a research university like Whitmore. He started working frantically. He abandoned his careful, methodical approach. He started churning out a manuscript. Rushed, sloppy, desperate. And when it was done, when he had 300 pages of half-baked analysis, he sent it to publishers. Big publishers. The kind that published serious academic books. The kind that mattered. One of those publishers was Greenfield Academic Press. The biggest name in historical scholarship. They published the books that defined fields, that won prizes, that made careers. Miles sent them his manuscript. And he waited. What Miles didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Greenfield Academic Press had recently acquired a new imprint, a commercial fiction imprint, and that imprint's biggest client, their cash cow, their golden goose, was N.R. Veyle. My phone rang. It was Richard Chen, the vice president of Greenfield. He was one of the 3 people who knew my real identity. We'd met once, in person, to sign contracts. He'd sworn secrecy. Miss Preston, he said. He always called me that. We have a delicate situation. I'm listening. We've received a manuscript submission from a Dr. Miles Preston, same last name as you. I'm assuming that's not a coincidence? He's my brother, I said. Long pause. The manuscript is fine, competent, nothing groundbreaking, but publishable. However, before we proceed, I need to know if there's any conflict of interest. I smiled. Richard, let me tell you what my brother said about my work, about my genre, about historical fiction. I told him every word. Lowbrow trash rots the brain, the enemy of real intellectualism. I told him about the dinner, about the filing, about 34 years of being dismissed. When I finished, the line was silent. Then Richard said very quietly, he said that about historical fiction, the genre that keeps our fiction imprint alive, the genre that subsidizes half our academic list, the genre that you, our most valuable author, writes. Yes, I said. Miss Preston, I want to be very clear about something. You are our most important client. Your books have generated more revenue in the past 3 years than our entire academic division. If you tell me you're uncomfortable sharing a publisher with your brother, his manuscript will be rejected by end of day. I'm uncomfortable, I said. Consider it done. Richard, I said, there's one more thing. When you reject him, I want you to tell him why. Are you sure? That'll reveal. I'm sure. Tell him that N.R. Veyle, the author he called lowbrow trash, finds his public comments about historical fiction unprofessional and insulting. Tell him that we can't publish someone who actively denigrates our most successful genre. Tell him that the garbage he dismissed has more value to this press than his entire academic career. Richard laughed. A short, sharp laugh. You're terrifying, you know that? I prefer thorough, I said. 3 days later, Miles received the rejection. It was polite, but firm. Your manuscript does not align with our current publishing priorities. Additionally, we have concerns about your public statements regarding historical fiction, a genre that represents a significant portion of our catalog. Our lead historical fiction author, N.R. Veyle, has expressed discomfort with your characterization of the genre as lowbrow and intellectually corrosive. As such, we must decline. I wasn't there when he read it, but I heard about it later. He'd called the press. He'd demanded to speak to someone. He'd been passed to Richard Chen, and Richard had, with perfect professional courtesy, explained that business decisions sometimes involve considering the concerns of major clients. And frankly, Dr. Preston, Miss Veyle generates more revenue in a quarter than most of our academic authors do in a lifetime. We can't afford to alienate her. Miles had apparently shouted, "Who the hell is N.R. Veyle?" Our most important author, Richard had said, and someone you should have thought twice before insulting. The rejection spread. Other publishers heard about it. The whisper network in academic publishing is small and vicious. Preston's manuscript was rejected because he insulted genre fiction. Apparently, he pissed off some big author. He's radioactive now. His tenure review came up. Without a book contract, without a finished major project, with questions about his grant spending. The committee voted no. Not yet. Reapply in 2 years. Provide your value. Miles was denied tenure. His media appearances dried up. His grad students drifted away. His carefully constructed brand, #Dr. Miles, became a ghost town. The university didn't fire him. Booth's contract wasn't renewed for the following year. He was offered a 1-year lecturer position, a demotion, adjunct level pay, no prestige, no future. It took him months, but he finally figured it out. He pieced together the clues. The N.R. Veyle Foundation. The ejection letter mentioning N.R. Veyle, the initials. He started Googling. He found hints, rumors, and eventually, through some combination of detective work and sheer obsessive desperation, he found me. He showed up at my apartment on a Thursday evening. I'd just finished writing a chapter. I was making dinner. I heard the knock. I checked the peephole, and there he was. He looked terrible. Gray, tired, older than he should have looked. I almost didn't open the door, but I wanted to see this. I wanted to see him broken. I opened the door. He stared at me, at my apartment. It wasn't the sad little studio my parents imagined. It was a penthouse, 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors, expensive furniture. The kind of place that costs $7,000 a month. The kind of place bought with lowbrow trash money. "Hannah," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked in slowly. He looked around. At the view. At the art on the walls, at the shelves of books, my books. 6 different covers, multiple editions, foreign translations, and on my desk, visible through the open office door, a framed New York Times bestseller list with my name on it, N.R. Veyle. "It was you," he whispered. "You're N.R. Veyle." I nodded. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "Hannah, please," he turned to me. "He sighs, we're desperate. You have to fix this. Call the publisher. Tell them you were wrong. Tell them to reconsider my manuscript. My career is over. I've lost everything." "No," I said quietly. "What?" "No, Miles. I won't fix this." His face twisted, anger and desperation fighting for control. "You have to. I'm your brother. You have all this money, all this success. From your hobby, your romance novels. You have to use it to help me, to help real scholarship. It's your duty as my sister." I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. "My hobby," I repeated. "My romance novels." I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. You've meant it your whole life. You called my work garbage. You said it rots people's brains. You said it makes your job harder. You dismissed me, my career, my life, without knowing anything about it. I didn't know it was you. Would it have mattered, I asked, if you'd known your sister was N.R. Veyle? Would you have respected my work, or would you have just found another way to dismiss it? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Let me tell you what I did, Miles. I didn't just refuse to help you. I actively destroyed you. The Harrison letters, the digitization project, that was me. I funded it. $300,000 of my hobby money. I did it specifically to make your exclusive access worthless. His face went white. You what? And the publisher? I didn't just refuse to share a house with you. I told them to reject you. I told them that if they published your book, I'd walk. And they chose me, because I'm worth more to them than you'll ever be. You're lying. But his voice was shaking. I'm not. I'm the reason you lost your grant. I'm the reason you lost your tenure. I'm the reason you lost everything. Because you never saw my value, Miles. You never saw me. You only saw the admin, the failure, the girl who couldn't hack it in your world. But I built my own world, and in my world, I'm the one with power. He stared at me, horror and understanding dawning on his face. You destroyed me, he whispered. You're my sister, and you destroyed me. You destroyed yourself, I said. You built your entire career on exclusivity, on gatekeeping, on being the chosen one. And when someone offered the world access to the thing you were hoarding, your work became ordinary. That's not my fault, Miles. That's yours. You never had anything real. You just had a locked door. I walked to my office, to my desk, to my shelves of books. Books that millions of people had read, had loved, had found meaning in. "Get out of my library," I said. He didn't move. He just stood there, shaking. "Hannah, please, get out." He turned. He walked to the door, slowly, like a man in a dream, and then he left. The door closed behind him. I locked it, and I stood in my apartment, in the space I'd bought with my own work, and I felt nothing. Not triumph, not guilt, just a cold, clean sense of completion. I sat back down at my desk. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the manuscript I've been working on, my new novel, historical fiction. Based on the Harrison letters, I'd been researching them for months. I knew them better than Miles ever would, and I was going to tell their story. Not as dry academic analysis, but as a living, breathing narrative. A kind of story that makes people feel something. The kind of lowbrow trash that somehow manages to make history accessible and human. I started typing, and for the first time in months, I felt free. So let me ask you something. Was I wrong? Was it my job to save my brother just because we shared DNA? Or did he write his own ending? What would you have done in my position? If your family dismissed everything you'd built, called your life's work garbage, and then came begging when they needed you, what would you have said? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or dismissed by the people who should have believed in you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for listening to my story.